This is the Daily Freakouts. And I am Bobby Freakout, or Gavin, depending on how I'm feeling, and today I'm not sure how I'm feeling. I had a perfectly good night's sleep. It was great. I woke up with a dog right next to me, touching me. I love the fact that the dogs, they don't want to sleep with their, like in spoon position, but they always have their butts to me and then their heads out, which I believe I've read online is a protection thing. They feel comfortable, so they give you their back because their back's the most vulnerable. So they're looking out for bad guys, which is great. Nice to know that they feel comfortable with me. But it just feels nice being able to feel a paw or a dog butt up against you when you wake up. One of the best things about my ex-partner and I breaking out, or our relationship ending and me getting the dogs, was that I was finally able to sleep with the dogs in the bed, because to me that's just, I love it. It's not for everyone, I get it. There is dog fur all over my bed. I have to clean my sheets and wash my sheets much more often. But it's just so much worth it. It's so worth it to me to wake up and feel the most important things in my life are right there, done. So that was very pleasing for me. But I did have coffee a little bit too late yesterday. I was trying to record something for another project that I'm working on called The Rehearsal Room, and I drank a coffee a bit too late in the day, and so it took a while to get to sleep, which is a bit disappointing. I normally do okay with coffee in the afternoon. I think that's a sign of ADHD from what the internet has told me. Yet another sign that it's possible that I have ADHD, or that I am ADHD, whatever the correct phrasing is. Today, it's Wednesday. We're doing the third one of these podcasts that no one will listen to. The numbers are not looking good on the last episode, on yesterday's episode, I'll be honest with you. But that's okay. You've got to build these things, don't you? You've got to start from nothing and build your way up to something big and wonderful. I don't expect to ever be big and wonderful, but hopefully we can get a few people listening and we can get some interaction going, because that's one of the things that I really would like the Daily Freakout to be, and it's much more of an interaction. If you've got a news article, or you've got a comment, or a belief, or a thing like that, you know how here in Australia, in Melbourne, they use, and probably the rest of the world, there was the old sort of right-wingy talk show hosts that would get people calling up and going, "Oh, I don't think that blah blah blah," that kind of stuff. I'd like to do that, but from a more positive standpoint. And obviously for me, that's more of a left-leaning standpoint, but more of a, what's going on? What's good in your world? What's something good that happened recently? As I continue to try to promote independent artists and stuff, I've in my own life, I've become much more of, I've realized, even in the last year, I've realized how much more I like grassroots / community efforts, as opposed to big, lots of money things, if that makes any sense. For instance, community radio as opposed to big commercial radio. That main difference there. And with podcasts, the kind of podcasts where the person making the podcast is the same person editing and uploading, like in my case, I like the idea that even though I'm not going to be doing the slickest of podcasts and things like that, it is going to be one that has, that the person you're talking to is me. I don't want to have a staff or anything like that. I saw there's a guy online who I've been seeing clips and things of recently, Caleb Hammer? Caleb? I think his name's Caleb. But he does financial advice for people, and they come on his show and they talk about their finances and where their finances are. And it makes me feel a lot better about my finances, because even though I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a lot of debt either. compared to some of these people. I don't think that I need to go on a holiday and save a bunch of money. I've always been, luckily I'm an introvert and I like sitting at home and staying at home, but I've always thought, why would I spend a whole heap of money to go away somewhere when I'm also going to be paying rent at the same time and I'm not going to enjoy the house that I pay rent for? I'm always, the staycation is my kind of thing. But I saw this Caleb guy and he was doing a quick tour of his offices and he's got a whole heap, he's got tens of people. And I'm like, dude, you make interview YouTube videos. You need like 4 people. I don't understand. I just, obviously, they're making enough money to make that kind of content and all that kind of stuff. It's working for them and stuff. But I just am like, how? I just couldn't work out how you need that many people. It feels bloated to make that kind of content. So I like the kind of content where the local band or whatever, they're the ones that are recording themselves almost, or that they get one person in to help recording, and they're the ones promoting the album and publishing the album, that kind of stuff, instead of having some big record label involved. I like the idea of podcasts where the podcaster is the one that you're interacting with. And in my case, I'm doing it in my spare room at home. I've got the TV, my 15-year-old, almost 15-year-old TV as the background, playing YouTube clips. I've got records that someone gave me at some point that I don't even think I've ever listened to as the background art in stuff. It's not some fancy set and stuff. And it always sort of disappointed me when I saw podcasts go to that level. The Buckleys recently did that, where they stopped doing their vlog and they went to a Spotify promoted podcast where they had producers and stuff, and I stopped listening. It just didn't entertain me anymore because it didn't feel real. One of my favorite podcasts that I've been listening to for a very long time, called Tell 'em Steve Dave, is still, as far as I'm aware, they don't have much of a staff. It's just pretty much just them. And they sit down and they've got a mixing desk and they hit record, and that's their job, is to do that podcast. And I think that's great. Obviously, some other podcasts out there have got big staff and they have editing and all that kind of stuff, and that works well. And I do listen to those as well. A good one from the ABC in Australia, Expanse, I think it was called, Nowhere Man, the series. So the podcast is called Expanse, and the series is called Nowhere Man, about an American guy who went on a bit of a walkabout in the Australian bush and got lost and had to get found and stuff like that. Now, that probably had a staff because it's part of the ABC. They've got a big staff and what have you. It had a whole bunch of people behind it, but you could feel, or at least I felt, like the main person involved was the reporter, whose name I cannot think of off the top of my head. Let me quickly see if I can find it. There it is. She did a great job of going out and doing the reporting. She even flew to Alaska to interview the guy. Erin Park is the lady's name. She's apparently, from what I've listened to just in this one podcast, she has lived in outback Australia for quite a while, doing reporting and news articles and what have you. And she did this podcast, and you can tell that when she was doing, or at least it felt like it to me, when she was doing these interviews and things. Erin Parker is a national regional affairs reporter based in Broome, Western Australia, originally from Perth. She did stints in newsrooms in New Zealand before settling in the remote Kimberley region. She dabbles in documentary making and has won awards for her reporting with the programs 7:30 and Background Briefing. So there you go. You could tell that she was the one doing it. She was the one holding the recorder and holding the microphone and saying the questions and knowing about her subject and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it was a really, really good podcast. And I felt like at the very end of it, it felt like really pure journalism. Didn't feel like she was... I never I never felt like I was getting her opinion, really. I felt like she was always just reporting on what was happening and what she was finding out and all that kind of stuff. I know that whenever I talk about stuff on here, it's always my opinion. It's always my viewpoint. I'm not a journalist in any way, shape, or form. And so with that podcast, I really liked the fact that even though there was a big staff and everything involved, it was her that you could feel like you were listening to, and her. It was. I don't know what the word is. I can't quite think of it, but we'll get there in the end. Is what I was going to say. I don't know, but that's where I'm at the moment with that. What a terrible segue and an end to the little segment there of an intro. That was meant to be an intro, but it went way too long. Let's have a listen, if it works, to a bit of music. This is the Zawinul Syndicate, Iala. So Zawinul Syndicate with the song or the track Eyala, Iala, from North Sea Jazz in 1997. And that guy looks familiar. Why do I know him? Maybe that's Joe Zawila. Anyway. It's got an awesome African influence there. Anyway. This is a little bit of music to break up the show in the halfway point to a certain degree. Go check these guys out. North Sea Jazz Archive on YouTube is where you can go. This was only posted 5 hours ago, so hopefully it'll get lots more views than it's already got. It's got a fair few. It's got more than I ever get. The one I think I've said it before, but I love the fact that the internet has so much music for us now. The idea that there's nothing to listen to or you can't find any music or art of any kind is absolutely gone. There's nothing restricting you from finding beautiful music out there. You just need to put a bit of time into search and to find. And the amount of jazz archives and the footage from the 80s and 90s and stuff where festivals were filmed, and it's absolutely fantastic. But anyway. So we're going to get a little bit depressed for the second half of the show. Or a little bit depressing, however you want to word it. Because here in Victoria, in Australia, we've had another police shooting, murder. I saw an article recently that talked, or a headline at least, that talked about how there are more guns in this country now than there were 30 years ago, what have you. Someone pointed out quite correctly that the population is also vastly increased since then, so the percentage of guns is probably similar. Some people claim that we don't have guns here, and that our gun cult, and that we have no way to defend ourselves, and all that kind of stuff. But not that long ago, I can't remember exactly when it was. There was a shooting in Wiambella, I believe the town was called, where two young police officers, were shot in an ambush when they were approaching a property. And it turned out that the people who did it were crazy. They thought that the cops were coming to ruin them or take them or something, and who knows what they thought. But they were in some weird sort of love triangle with two brothers and this woman, and they had gone completely crazy. They thought they were being tracked. They thought that all this kind of stuff. And it seems like, and at the moment we're not even 48 hours out from this shooting, most recent shooting, so any kind of reporting is very circumspect. It's very open to change. The possibilities are that it's completely wrong. But it appears that two senior or older members of the police force have been shot and killed. Another one was sent to hospital and is okay. And the gentleman who did it is now on the run with his, I think, wife and daughter, or wife and another member of the family. So maybe it's not the daughter, or a daughter. And again, people are suggesting that this person was what we refer to as a cooker, which means that they've cooked their brain because they think that COVID wasn't real and that the government's coming to kill them and all this other stuff. I've said before, and I'll say it again, that I am somewhat of an anarchist. I don't believe in big governments. I don't believe in people having huge amounts of power. So I don't like things like, or situations like North Korea, where you have a dictator, or Russia, where you have effectively a dictator, or America, where you have a wannabe dictator, and you see the potential for their democracy falling into some strange, like, just what, who knows what's going on there. Oh, pardon me. But I do not go to the level of being this kind of cooker, because when I've sat and thought about my beliefs in terms of anarchy and stuff, I've thought, well, some form of organization is good. Having roads that are relatively smooth is good. Having police forces that are able to deal with situations that are either dangerous or problematic is good. Having fire departments is good. Ambulances, hospitals that are run by the community, that kind of stuff is all good. So when I say anarchy, I don't mean everyone on the streets acting like animals running wild like we're animals in the forest. I think of anarchy as being local community or state even power, not federal power. So I would suggest maybe, and again, not an expert, this is just random crazy person talk, but I would like the idea that, for instance, if you took the United States, I would say unite them, dissolve the union effectively. Make it so that all of them are individual and they all have to work out their own shit. That way you wouldn't have the kind of invading force that has been setting up military bases all around the world over the last however many years, 100 years. You wouldn't have the ability to develop things like the nuclear weapons, maybe. And you wouldn't have the kind of National Guard going into these states and stuff like what's happening at the moment, because you've effectively put all this power in one person. And if you listen to Dan Carlin's podcast at all, especially the common sense stuff, the political stuff, you'll hear that he's made the point that it's a matter of giving all this power to one person, and so the three systems or the three power avenues of power that they have are no longer able to keep each one of them in check. And so this idea that you've got three different levels of power that monitor each other has dissolved to a certain degree. And so to me, the idea of anarchy is to get back to that power centralized in areas that can then monitor each other. Here in Australia, it would... Oh, great, one of my lights is about to fade away. Good thing no one watches or listens to this. Here in Australia, you'd break it up into the 6 states that we have, and 2 territories, and it would mean that we didn't have this big force. We would then obviously have agreements between the states to help each other out. It would be very similar to Europe, I would imagine, where I think it's NATO comes in and helps when another member of NATO is in trouble, and you help each other out, but you don't tell each other what to do necessarily. You've got soft power instead of hard power, and that's the level of anarchy and stuff that I am at. These people, these cookers, seem to think that the government is 100% evil. And now we all know that the government's not great. It's a bunch of people, and people screw things up all the time and do things terribly. That's what always ruins any good idea. Communism and stuff and socialism and stuff sounds good on paper. Anarchy sounds good on paper. But when people are involved, problems happen because us people ruin things. And so this guy seemed, we don't know what's happened and stuff right now. Apparently he's been on a current affair or TV shows and stuff like that, talking his absolute crap. Apparently he was known to police. Apparently 10 police officers were there to execute a warrant regarding sexual assault, I believe, from what I've read. Again, still early days, we don't know. And in that, he has shot and killed 2 of them in cold blood, as they say, which, I mean, how do you not kill someone in cold blood? But what do you think? I don't understand the cooker mentality of what benefit are you going to get from this? If I was, whenever I've thought about wanting to go off grid and completely be ignored by the world, I've thought, well, wait a second. If I know that the government wants taxes. I know that if I buy property, the government is still going to come and check on my property because I can't be doing things that are going to negatively affect the community. And we then get into a whole thing of, well, I didn't ask to be born in this community, blah, blah, blah. But you have a responsibility to the people around you to not do crazy things. If I, for some reason, set a fire here at home and it got out of control, it could potentially burn down the people around me. I have to be considerate of the fact that I can't just willy-nilly start setting fires. If I'm going to make a fire, it needs to be controlled. I need to have it under control and be in control of it. I can't just be a crazy person doing fires. And a fire is a good example that it can affect other people. Smoke from those fires. I am conscious when I have had little barbecues and fires and stuff out at my place here that I am in I'm not suburban, I'm a bit out of suburban, but I'm not in the country either. And I'm aware that my smoke from my fire will go and affect other people. I need to be aware of that. And so these people seem to think that if they, and I believe, I didn't mention it, I should have said, apparently this guy is a sovereign citizen, which is one of these people that says, I'm not driving, I'm traveling. They think that just because they say something a bit different, it's going to get them out of a speeding fine, or they don't have to have a license and stuff. They think they've found loopholes in the system that they can get around. And there are absolutely loopholes in the system. That's how people don't pay taxes. But to think that you're going to get away with this kind of stuff when there's no evidence of people getting away with it, and that if you get away with it, they're probably going to close that loophole pretty soon after. To then get to the point of thinking that they're going to have a property somewhere in the country that the police or the government or the society, the community, are not going to be concerned about what they're doing, to then stockpile weapons. I mean, to me, these 2 incidents feel to me somewhat similar to something in America like Ruby Ridge or the Waco situation, where even though I don't think that our government has so far, or our police force, I don't feel that they have overstepped their bounds, which is certainly what happened in Ruby Ridge and Waco. It also doesn't feel like these people are thinking straight. They're absolute crazies. They have cooked their brains. They are cookers. And it's very worrying that these kind of people exist, because you never know what they're going to do. But then at the same time, and I'm devil's advocating myself here, what if we leave them alone and we let them just be crazy? Would they ever do anything? I listened to an in-depth podcast about the William Bella shooting, and part of me was like, these guys were just crazy. Couldn't they have just been left alone? There's a certain amount of, no, you can't have guns, but in none of the podcast material that I listened to did they ever talk about wanting to hurt other people necessarily. It was always, oh, they're going to come for us and we need to defend ourselves. And it's like, well, I kind of agree with defending yourself if someone's coming for you. But then obviously you ask the question of, why are they coming for you? But at no point did I ever feel like these people were going to do something that they needed to be stopped from doing. That being said, though, there's been numerous times where people have done stuff. The Port Arthur massacre being, no matter how many cookers question the Port Arthur massacre these days, which is just crazy, he did do stuff where he had gotten weapons and then he did what he did. He went on a massacre and shot a bunch of people. There's no doubt that that is possible. That is plausible. It is something that we need to, as a society, keep each other safe by stopping that from happening. And if this, in this case, if it's sexual assault or some other things, then, and there was a warrant for a search warrant, then the police obviously had a reason to go in there thinking that something was thing. They don't just, I was going to say they don't just come up with nothing and go for a search warrant, but that does happen. You can't deny that. There are times when police forces abuse their power. It's one of the things that really annoys me is the fact that police forces do abuse their power and they make it worse for everyone by doing that. And they should be investigated by someone other than themselves in that situation. But I am a lonely, introverted, middle-aged man. I am not an educated criminologist or psychiatrist or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just babbling about absolute arse. So, please, if you've got a comment, if you think, what do you think? Are cookers idiots, just straight up, or do they have a point and they're just going about it the wrong way? Should there be less government oversight or police oversight? Should police be allowed to just come onto your property and do and execute a search warrant? At what point do you have the defense to say you cannot come in here? I don't know. And I think that's is that an age-old argument or an age-old conundrum for society? Has every society ever had to deal with this? Because it seems like they probably have. It seems like no matter what the society is, there has always been people with power trying to do their best to keep everyone safe, and other people ruining it for everyone by being unsafe. I don't know. But my condolences definitely go out to the officers. I'm not a huge fan of police, but it is an absolute necessary evil, as it were, and no police officer should be murdered or should be shot like that. It just shouldn't happen, because they do a job. They do a necessary job. It is, as much as I say I'm an anarchist, I think that policing is a necessary job. So my thoughts go out to them, and hopefully this guy is captured, and most likely he'll try and defend himself, and he'll most likely get shot. That's another thing. I don't understand how they think they can actually defend themselves against the police force, because the police force has some pretty serious stuff to deal with this kind of stuff. So anyway, that's the Daily Freakout for Wednesday, the 27th of August. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. If you've made it this far, then you are part of a very small group, because not many people are making it this far. And that's fine, because we're building. We're just building something. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow, or I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll talk at you tomorrow on Thursday. I'll be tired, and I will be probably rambling even more than I am now. Thank you very much. This is the Daily Freakout. Goodbye.